Hello, and welcome to the W.A.I.T channel. What Am I Thinking? A podcast where two sisters share uplifting conversations on fun and sometimes serious topics.
Join us each week by clicking the notification bell and subscribing to our channel. If you enjoy the show, use the share link. It's one of the best ways to expand the conversation.
Welcome to the W.A.I.T channel. What am I thinking? Well, today we are offering condolences to the Feinstein family. Senator Dianne Feinstein has passed away at the age of 90, still actively in office and having actually done a vote prior to her passing. In the midst of everything that is going on, there was a lot of thought about how her passing away could impact the impending shutdown and whether they were going to get this government spending bill passed. Well, one good thing in this political climate, Lori, is that the Senate actually had been on the same page about what they were willing to do to get the spending bill done. It was the House that, even amongst their own Republicans, could not come together to make it happen. And just prior to us recording, we did find out that they did a 45-day sort of stopgap bill so they can have a little bit more time to get it together. So Diane's passing would not have been an impasse or a problem either way, because the Senate, for once, was on the same page, and it's the House that needs to pull it together so that there's not a government shutdown. And I'm going to let you kind of share a little bit, but I know there's some confusion about people confusing the debt ceiling shutdown threats that we've had in the past with the government shutdown, and it is a bit different. But tell me, how are you thinking and feeling with Senator Feinstein passing, and about the shutdown as close as they have come so far?
Well, regarding the senator, she was in an advanced age, and we knew that her latter days she had been dealing with illness. So, and not to be cold or anything, we don't live forever, and I think that we all knew at some point that she was either going to step down due to her health, or she would do what has actually happened. She passed while still serving.
Right.
I have just, still processing. I knew that she most definitely was a trailblazer, but it is quite interesting listening to the reports going all the way back, following her political career, and the phenomenal gains that she made for women. It's just, I think that the governor in California, I think it's very smart of him in the way that he's going to handle getting someone to represent them, even though he's getting a little backlash on how he's choosing to handle it. But yeah,
saying it's going to be a black female.
Saying that it's going to be a black female, but not anyone that currently is running, and there
Right.
just so happens to be a black female running. In that situation, it was lose-lose, regardless of how he chose to do it.
Sure.
There's always someone on either side of the aisle that would criticize.
Yeah.
So and that's part of the It's kind of bittersweet because I had hoped, like a number of people had hoped, that she would have stepped down and not put him in that position. And but it didn't happen in that way. So we just have to
Right.
deal with what we have. And with regard to how her passing could have potentially played into the shutdown, I'm glad that it didn't. I'm glad that hopefully that 45 days will also give the governor in California the time to actually fill that seat, and then it would be a moot question about it getting to the Senate, and whether or not Feinstein being there or not being there would be a problem.
Correct. But let's talk about, what this shutdown could mean. The government shutting down is different than the debt ceiling. When the debt ceiling, when those bills need to be passed, we're talking about actual, when you're going to pay at the checkout and they swipe your credit card and they're like, no bueno, it was rejected. Basically, when they're trying to get that debt ceiling raised, it's because the country needs its limit increased in order to continue to go on. That's kind of a little layman's way to say that. But with the government shutdown, it is those non-essential government entities that will go home. The military does not go home, but sadly, their pay is put on hold until a bill is passed. So they're going to be working without getting that paycheck on the 1st and the 15th. And that's terrible. Having, served, that's not a great feeling to know that, you still have to do your job, but you're not going to get paid until later. We understand in this country, sadly, there are a lot of families that live paycheck to paycheck. And our military service people, a lot of them fall into that category. So, it's not a great situation. So we send our lawmakers there to avoid things like this, not to be the cause of things like this. So what do you have to say, Lori?
I think that it's also quite hypocritical when you have certain entities who are in those political offices, whether it's the Senate or in Congress, who, because they have an investigative committee right now for Hunter Biden, have stated that the individuals that are part of that investigation are essential workers. So they will not be furloughed when and if the government is shut down.
That is crazy. That's crazy. Wow. Okay. That's interesting to know. But, Social Security checks will still go out. That is not going to stop. But a program that I did learn would be impacted is W.A.I.T. And the vulnerable always seems to get the short end of the stick, because if you're receiving benefits from a W.A.I.T program, you're in poverty. And you need these things to sustain yourself through pregnancy and your children once they're born. So that just made me so sad to know that that's a program that could be affected by this.
To be quite honest with you, I'm really just disappointed and disgusted with our legislators. I don't think that there should ever be a point where communication is so difficult, so complicated, that the impasse is so great that you cannot sit down and talk and figure things out. If you're not able, then that means you're not a good communicator. You don't know how to compromise. Then perhaps you are in the wrong vocation, and you should not be in Washington. We need leaders that are not acting like children, who can sit down and govern. And that's not what we're seeing. This tit for tat, I am just so over it. I really am. Because when I look at it, to me, my first initial response to the idea that there could be a shutdown is that it's politically motivated. Yeah. And I feel that way because it's not the first time that it has happened. And that's my first go-to thought. What's going on? Who's not cooperating, i.e. Matt Gaetz? And who is pulling puppet strings for political reasons or political gain?
And we know that the longest shutdown lasted for 35 days, and it was from December 22nd, 2018 to January 25th, 2019. And I try to think back on that time window as to what was going on in my world, but I can truly empathize with that's the holiday. That is Christmas and New Year's, that the government was shut down because of this. And it says the U.S. economy lost at least $11 billion directly and indirectly because of that shutdown. We are already dealing with some financial hardships for individuals. So how are you going to tell me that this is what the country needs? It makes me want to get back on my soapbox about term limits. We have so many politicians that go in and their agenda becomes their self-interest instead of that of their constituents. And term limits would go a long way to stop that. And so they would be the ones, unfortunately, that would have to implement that. But we need it in this country. We need it in the House. We need it in the Senate. If it's good enough for the presidency to have term limits, so should the House and the Senate. And the Senate should not be a 6-year term. You know, the timing of when our forefathers put these sort of legislative protocols in place, we're way past that. And it's time to, the same way I feel about for the Supreme Court, it's time to do it differently. So condolences to Senator Feinstein and her family. Lawmakers, get it together and do what you need to do to keep this government running. And citizens, let's not forget those who are being part of the problem and not part of the solution. I'll let you close it out, Lori.
I just need everyone to remember this. Remember the living in the threat of a government shutdown. Remember that 365 days from now, we will be primed and ready to go into our very, very active moment of this country preparing to vote. We need to remember this stuff and not forget and not pull the lever based on I'm doing what my mom did or I'm doing what my dad did. We have to remember, because change comes on local as well as federal level in the voters' booth. You got to remember that. So as I close out, let us know what you are thinking about our government, about the potential shutdown, about our legislators. We're really interested. Share in the comment section and tell us what you're thinking. Bye-bye.